In a dusty corner of a forgotten village, where the sun baked the earth until it cracked like old skin, there lived a stray dog everyone called Shadow. No one knew where he came from. Some said he had once belonged to a shepherd who died in the hills. Others said he was born wild and never learned to trust hands. Shadow was thin, ribs sharp under patchy black fur, one ear torn from some old fight. He moved like smoke, silent, always at the edge of things, never begging outright. He waited. He watched. And when a child dropped a scrap of roti or a woman tossed a bone from her stew, he took it without noise, without thanks, and vanished again. The village children feared him at first, then pitied him, then forgot him. The adults barely noticed. He was part of the background, like the cracked wall or the dry well. But every evening, when the sky turned the color of bruised mangoes, Shadow would walk to the edge of the village and sit on the low hill overlooking the only road in and out. He sat there until full dark, ears pricked, eyes fixed on the horizon as if he were waiting for someone who had promised to return. One scorching summer the drought deepened. The river shrank to a muddy thread, crops withered. People grew thin and short-tempered. Food became something argued over, not shared. Shadow felt it too. The scraps grew fewer, the bones rarer. His ribs became more visible, his steps slower. Yet every evening he still climbed the hill and waited. One twilight, a small girl named Leela, 7 years old, barefoot, hair tangled, wandered away from her house. She had heard her father shouting about empty pots and her mother crying quietly in the corner. Leela couldn't bear the sound. She walked farther than she meant to, past the last hut, up the low hill. There she found Shadow sitting in his usual place. She froze. Everyone said the black dog was dangerous. But Shadow only turned his head, looked at her with those deep amber eyes, and then looked away again back to the empty road. Leela sat down a few feet from him. Neither moved for a long time. The crickets started their evening song. A breeze stirred the dry grass. "Why do you wait here every night?" Leela whispered. Shadow didn't answer, of course. But after a while he shifted closer just a little and lay down with his head on his paws, still watching the road. Leela came back the next evening, and the next. She brought nothing the first few times. Then one day she brought half a stale chapati wrapped in her dupatta. She broke it in two. One piece she ate. The other she placed on the ground between them. Shadow sniffed it, looked at her, then ate slowly, careful bites, as if afraid the food might disappear. When he finished, he licked his chops once, then rested his chin near her foot, not touching, just close. Days blurred into weeks. The drought worsened. Leela's family ate once a day, sometimes less. But every evening she slipped away with whatever she could hide: a crust, a few grains of rice, a sliver of potato. She shared it all with Shadow. He grew a little less bony. His coat began to shine again in patches, and every night, after they ate, they sat together watching the road. One evening the wind carried a different smell: smoke, metal, diesel. Far down the road a truck appeared, dust rising behind it like a brown cloud. Leela stood up quickly. Shadow stood too, ears forward, body tense. The truck stopped at the village edge. A man climbed out, tall, sunburned, wearing a faded army jacket. He looked around, uncertain. Then he called a name, soft at first, then louder. "Ronnie, Ronnie." Shadow's ears flattened. A low whine escaped his throat, the first sound Leela had ever heard from him. He took one step forward, then another. The man saw him and froze. "Ronnie," the man whispered. Shadow walked slowly down the hill, limping a little, ribs still showing, but head high. When he reached the man, he stopped. The man knelt. Tears cut tracks through the dust on his face. "I looked for you everywhere," the man said. "After the accident, I thought you were gone." Shadow pressed his head into the man's chest. A single, broken sound came out, not quite a bark, more like a sob held inside for years. Leela watched from the hill, arms wrapped around herself. The man looked up and saw her. He stood, still holding Shadow's scruff gently. "Is this your dog?" he asked. Leela shook her head, then nodded, then shook it again. She didn't know what Shadow was anymore. The man smiled sadly. "He was my dog once. I left him with my mother when I went away to work. She died. I couldn't come back in time. I thought he starved, or ran wild." He looked at Shadow. "But someone kept him alive." Leela's throat hurt. She walked down the hill slowly. Shadow turned to look at her, those same amber eyes, softer now. The man knelt again. "I can take him with me. He'll have food, a yard, a home. but if you want him to stay. Leela looked at Shadow. Shadow looked back. Then he did something he had never done before. He licked the back of her hand once, very gently. Leela crouched and hugged him. His fur smelled of dust and sun and every shared scrap of bread. She whispered into his torn ear, "Go with him. You waited long enough." Shadow whined again, soft, almost like a goodbye. The man lifted him carefully into the truck. Shadow sat in the passenger seat, looking out the window at Leela the whole time. The truck started. Dust rose. The engine faded down the road. Leela stood there until the dust settled and the sky turned indigo. Then she walked home alone. That night she cried into her pillow so her parents wouldn't hear. The next evening she climbed the hill anyway. She sat in the same spot, arms around her knees, staring at the empty road. No dog came, but after a while, she felt something warm against her side. She looked down, a tiny black puppy rib showing. One ear already torn had curled up beside her. It looked up with the same amber eyes. Leela smiled through tears. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the last piece of bread she had saved. "Here," she whispered. "We'll start again." The puppy ate slowly, carefully, the way Shadow once had. And every evening after that, Leela came back to the hill, sometimes alone, sometimes with the little dog who grew strong, who followed her everywhere, who never waited for anyone else again. Because some loves are not meant to be kept forever. Some loves are meant to teach you how to give, how to wait, and how to begin again when the road finally takes what you loved most. Leela named the puppy Echo, and the hill remembered them both.